it's Brock here from Rock Hill Farms. And I've got a little bit of a problem here, but that's okay, because a problem is just a starting point, and usually from that starting point is an opportunity to learn something and improve your skills. The reason I'm making this video today is because when I'm working on a project, every time I finish, people in the comments tell me things I didn't know or I wish I would have known before I started. So this time, I want to get your feedback before I do it wrong. Anyone who's been following along knows I ordered a 30-foot by 60-foot Quonset hut that's going to serve as our new equipment shed. That Quonset hut has to set, the sides have to set on a 2-foot tall wall. I ordered it that way so that the center of the building is taller. They've made the building with taller end walls to accommodate it. Everything's prepared for that. So whenever I ordered the building, the salesman told me the easiest thing to do, if you want that taller center, is just get some 4-foot long concrete blocks. They've got a V shape on them. They're used for construction. All your excavating companies are going to have those and use them. He said just get some of those, line them up the length of the wall, set your building on it. To build the building, you set a metal track down, you screw it into the concrete, and then your walls snap into that. So that didn't sound that hard. He said the blocks aren't that expensive. I said, great, I'll do that. Then that left me with the fact that I was on a hillside and I've got to get this site prepped. And we had 5 or 6 foot of drop from one side to the other. So first thing I did, I called an excavating company and got quotes to level this out and give us a pad to put the building on. Well, the quotes were like $5,000 to $8,000. I couldn't pay that, you know? And as I talk about this, I want to make it clear that I don't have a problem with their rates. I think if I was in the excavating business at this scale and I had a crew and heavy equipment and insurance and taxes and everything that they have to go through, I'd probably charge the same rates they do. It's completely reasonable. But the fact that the rate they're charging makes sense is completely separate from whether or not I can pay it. I try to think outside the box, and when a situation like this comes along, my first thought is always, can I do this myself? So in the case of prepping this site, I said, I don't have the equipment and I don't have the experience. Is it possible for me to get it done with just my tractor? Yes, it's possible, but is that the best way? So what I did was I rented a larger piece of equipment. You know, not as big as a professional would use, but big enough with that Kubota mini excavator. Then I found someone with experience who would charge me just an hourly rate, not overhead for their entire business and their, you know, their equipment and their insurance and their taxes and all that, just an hourly rate to run the piece of machinery. I spent time learning. I've gained equipment with the transit level, and then I've got the tractor, and I had other equipment to facilitate it. And we got this job done, including paying the operator and the rental, for about $2,000 instead of $6,000 that I was being bid. So I saved a ton of money. Part of that was my experienced operator, and when I say experienced, he's not just experienced on the machines, but he's experienced at all levels of projects like this. He's owned an excavating company. He knows what he's talking about. So I told him the plan for the building, and he said he wouldn't do that. He said I would dig a foundation, pour a real foundation, and a concrete stem wall. I hear him say that, and I say, this guy knows more than I do, and he probably knows more than the guy selling the buildings. So I'm gonna do it the way he says to do it. So we dig these footings. I had talked to a concrete guy. He said I needed a 16-foot deep, 16-foot wide trench. And the excavator we had didn't have a 16-inch bucket, it had a 24. Well, I knew I didn't want a 24-inch trench. That's a lot more concrete. So I called them up. They had an 18-inch we could get. Thought that's just 2 more inches, so we go get this 18-inch bucket. And we dug the footings. We got everything measured out and set up the way we want. We dug these trenches, and an 18-inch bucket, when operated across this and with the fallout and the breakout on the sides and stuff, we ended up with a trench that's 2 foot wide and 2 foot deep. I thought, well, that trench is a little bigger than I wanted it, but no big deal. When I bought this property, it had a 30 by 50 building up here, and I had concrete poured in there. It was $4,500 for the entire floor with runouts on all 3 of the garage doors, for us to stage our materials and stuff. I thought if an entire building, this almost the same size as this one, is 4,500, footings are probably 2,500. And that's just a case of me not really thinking it through, honestly. So then I called and asked for some bids. First, I had a hard time getting concrete guys to call me back. And when I finally got a couple of companies out here to give me a bid, the first bid was $8,000. The second bid was $10,000 to $12,000, depending on options they gave me. Same thing I said about the excavating. I bet if I was running a concrete company and had experience on jobs like this, and I knew what it cost to get good help and to pay them, and benefits for the employees and taxes and insurance and everything, I would probably charge what they charge. But that doesn't mean I can pay it. I cannot pay $8,000 to $12,000 for this concrete. I mean, technically I could, but I have a lot of other things going on. Besides, I still have to pay for the building when it gets here next month. I've ordered a new truck. I'm looking at getting a gooseneck trailer. I'm just not going to pay that. So what that leaves me with is I need to do this myself. One problem though, I don't know anything about concrete finishing, but I'm going to figure it out and I'm going to do this myself. I'm enlisting you guys to tell me any advice you have. So the first thing I've figured out is that this trench doesn't need to be 24 inches deep. I can save concrete by making it 16 inches deep, which is all it really has to be. So I bought a plate compactor, and I haven't taken it out of the box yet up there, but I've got a plate compactor, so I can shovel this flat, run the plate compactor, put some rock on top of it, run the compactor on top of that, and have a good flat packed base, and that reduces the amount of concrete I need by 1/3. They estimated 30 yards, then I'd only need 20. So that's a big savings right there. The second thing is, my brother-in-law drives a concrete truck, and he's coming over tonight, and we're going to plan out his approaches and stuff and see what I need to do. But he's able to get me kind of a employee discount on the concrete. I also found out that right now concrete's going $110 a yard on my bid. If I call directly to the concrete company, it's $93 a yard. That's a pretty big difference, but I'm going to be able to get it for, I don't know if I'm supposed to say that, but I'm not saying the name of the company. So I'm going to save a substantial amount of money just on the concrete by reducing the amount of concrete I need in the hole by 1/3. The next thing is there's about over $2,000 of labor in that bid. I'm going to save all that. I know my time's worth money too, but I'm going to do all this work myself. I've got a couple kids who work up here in the shop, and I'm going to pay them to help me do the work. So right now I feel like I'm halfway through the problem solving on this. I still have a couple of problems to solve. Number one, my original plan was to drive rebar into the ground all the way around and then tie rebar horizontally to the vertical rebar, and that would give me my framework. I talked to a guy the other day who said they no longer drive rebar into the ground because what's in the ground can rot or rust, and then that rust can work its way up and leave voids in your concrete. They said now the way they do it is hang rebar across the hole and then suspend rebar from that for the support inside the concrete. So I'm still looking at options on doing the rebar. As a matter of fact, I have 4 options in my mind. Option number 1, fill the hole in with the dirt we took out of the hole. Put the blocks on it the way the salesman told me to. That's the cheapest and that's the easiest. It's the quickest. It's probably the least effective because you're back to just having concrete blocks instead of a real foundation. Option number 2, pour concrete footing and then anchor those same blocks onto the footing. Feels like if you're going to that much trouble, you should have your concrete tied together all the way down. Option number 3, pour concrete footing with rebar sticking up, build a concrete block wall on top of it. Option number 4, pour the footing and then build my own forms, mix my own concrete, and do this all manually and build an actual stem wall. It might take me another week, maybe even 2 weeks of planning, and then I'm gonna jump into this thing. It's just my philosophy on life that people tell you everything has to be done perfect to a certain set of standards, and I feel like I can learn a new skill, buy the equipment, and do a pretty good job if I just really focus on it. And that's what I'm gonna try to do. So if you have any advice for me on what to do with this and how to get these footings or stem walls poured, I'd love to hear it. Otherwise, I appreciate you taking time to watch the video. Just a minute, you'll see links on the screen to a couple more of our videos, and I'll see you next time.